Hello, Scesney here, and I'm totally winging this. Last night I had a very good experience. It was a 1 hour webinar, and my God, they didn't try to sell anything at the end. All they did was give me something, and worst scenario, I'd get an email from them, and I could simply click a button, not have to hear from them again. The guy who had this wasn't somebody talking about making a 100 grand a month and he's with this and you have to know this person and have to know that person and eventually you'll be making so much money and you'll be living in Hawaii and none of that. This guy, he was down and out at one time like everybody gets. He was hurting, he was depressed, he was homeless, he was addicted to alcohol, drugs, suicidal, you name it. Pretty much at one point of his life was, according to Forbes magazine, the 25th richest man in the world, and he was involved in oil and all kinds of other things. He hit rock bottom after that, and now he came back, and what he's done is he's really believing in karma. He's sharing everything that he learned to be where he is today. And I took a bunch of scratch notes, so this is not professional. I'm putting this together because anybody I love, I want to hear the good information, the good notes that I took. So chill out, close your eyes, relax, and some of you might want to do that, somebody might want to take notes. I would take notes if I were you, or just save it, because you could always play it back. The guy's name is Bill Bartman. I like the name Bartman because my brother is Bart. People call him the Bartman. Bartman, I liked it. But this is the guy I'm talking about. And what he did was, he put together some things that are very important. And what I'm going to do now is just really start looking. What he learned about failure, he realized that everybody fails. Everybody will fail. No matter what you do, you will fail, and that's a fact. And he's going to teach people what he learned about failure and why worry while we fail. He's saying don't worry when you fail. It's all in the plan. God put a plan together, and your higher power put a plan together and knew you were going to fail all along. It's supposed to be that way. That's the only way you can learn. There's the libraries. They're full of how to succeed in this, how to succeed in that, success, and all that kind of stuff. But most failures are avoidable. And when you realize that after you make the mistake that they're avoidable, there really were signs. There were signals to prove that that was coming along. So it's great learning. These mistakes really equal great learning. And the more mistakes you have, the more you think back, oh, I saw it coming, the more you can prevent it in the future. Success and failure are subject to terms. That success and failure, they're subject to terms. We all see beauty differently, okay? So example, Mr. Smith loves his wife and thinks she's the most beautiful thing in the world. Somebody else doesn't. It doesn't matter. So success and failure are subjective to terms that, we all see beauty at different levels. Our idea of success and failures is different. What I think is successful, you might not think. What I think is a failure, you might not think. So, we all get caught up thinking everybody thinks like we do. It's not the case. We're all going through things. We all have failures. We all have shame. And when we have it, we think the whole world's looking at us. They're not. Why? Because the whole world's going through the same thing too. They're thinking about their problems, not yours. So it's kind of funny when you realize that you're not having any limelight on you at all. It's all in your head. Our idea of success and failures are different, everybody's. Again, the guy was, he was the 25th richest man in the country according to Forbes. And then he kind of hit the hard times. Neighbors, he was embarrassed when he went down. It was all over the media. He was embarrassed to see his neighbors and stuff, and he felt like they were looking at him wrong. And what? And then he started realizing if you think you're successful, you are successful. Screw everybody and what they think. And both success and failure are temporary. 5 minutes of fame, that's an old saying. Success and failure are two-sided. So if you have the word success, a line, and the word failure, they're basically two-sided. It's really the same thing. Any failure can be overcome, and failure isn't a dead-end, road. It's simply a detour. You have to look at this now. This is what stuck with me. Failures are a detour, and what he said was, if you're riding down the street and you have a definition, you know what you're doing, and you're driving, and all of a sudden there's a bridge you need to go over, but it's washed out. You have a choice. You can either turn off your car and sit there and do nothing. You can start the engine up, or keep running your engine and go somewhere else and find out how to get over that river. So look at your life and those failures as detours, because obviously you're here now, and it wasn't all that horrible. And that's the way life is, full of detours. There's a lot of detours that a lot of successful people had. Walt Disney was turned down as an art director. Bob Dylan, he was booed off the stage, and Rolling Stone voted him #1 song, like a Rolling Stone. But he didn't stop. It was a detour. To Joe Torre, 4-time world champ. He was fired 3 times before that. Some of these other names I scribbled, sent back from the minors. That's horrible. Can you imagine being sent back from the minor league? Sent back to the minor league from being a major league player. Who was that? It was Brooks Robinson, one of the greatest third basemen in history. So there's a lot of people that are successful that have missed more than 9,000 games, lost 300 games. Mike Jordan, then he ended up kicking butt. He failed over and over. That was his quote. The answer to my success, the reason for my success, is because I failed over and over. And that's kind of cool. Over and over, he failed. That's what made him successful. He missed 100% of shots. Didn't take, at one point in his life, he in one game, but he didn't take that as a negative. He didn't stop his car. He kept going. He kept shooting. And look who he is now. It's Michael Jordan. We too will miss 100% of the shots that we didn't take. Oh well. And what he said, here's some secrets about overcoming failure. He was, this guy who I'm talking about, Mr. Bartman, he was a high school dropout, gangs, etc. But what he said, which is very important, is what made him live, what made him not blow his brains out, what made him go with it, is the 3 F's. It's your faith, your family, and your friends. No one overcomes failure by themselves. These people will always be important in your life. And with these places will help you when everybody else turns you down. Faith, family, and friends. The 3 rotate. Sometimes you're going to lean on one, sometimes you're leaning on the other, whatever it may be. Don't be too proud. These people won't turn you down when everybody else does. They love you and they want you to succeed. No matter how you screw up, these people want that for you. Acknowledge and admit that stuff happens, and don't be in denial. Quantify it and see if it's what truly is, and don't exaggerate the negatives. Almost no one cares. They don't care about the negative. Sample. There was a video issue made by the host of the webinar last night. He was stressing out, and he realized, hey, you know what? It's just a piece of video equipment I need to put into my computer system, and then we're going to go to the next step. He overcame that detour. So what? It was a couple $100, but so what? He was able to help a couple thousand people in the webinar due to it. Stop acting pregnant and alone. I like that. 6 to 9 billion people have had a baby. Stop being that one person that's pregnant, acting like you're the only person that had a baby. Failure is a common event. You compare failure to previous history. How does it compare to other screw-ups? It might not be as big as what we have overcome in the past. We will overcome. Make a list of our failures and success. We'll do that later. The brain works funny in people. It does not let you forget the things that really embarrassed you and hurt you and failed, the shame. Your brain won't let you forget it. You have to retrain the brain. You have to remember the things you did that were successful and start forgetting about the failures. But don't completely forget about them, because they're important to know so you don't repeat them. And you can help other people avoid failures. Bartman, this guy Bartman, out of tens of thousands of people, he's never, ever met somebody who wrote down a line down on paper and wrote all their failures and all their successes. He's never met a person who honestly did that and sat down and soul searched who had more failure than success. So what his philosophy is, it was funny. He said, what he did to start changing his life, and he'd tell anybody, it took a loose leaf paper and a pencil. He drew a line down the paper, and he wrote success. He wrote failure on the left. He wrote success on the right. So he started writing all the things he did he failed. And then he started thinking of things that made him successful. Even if it was a smile from his daughter, that was successful. He felt good. So these successes all write down, and successful is higher. Then you go back to the failures, and then when you're looking at the failures, you scratch out the failure that you overcame and add that to your success, because that failure is now a success because you overcame it. Then you'll see you're rocking. You got all these successes, few failures, and that is a very good point. Okay, now if I can find page 2. Any failure can be overcome. Failure isn't a dead end, it's just a detour. Remember that road trip we talked about, so you shouldn't have any problem with that. Okay, when you have a failure, admit it and respect it. Identify your personal motivator. You have to find somebody who's a personal motivator, whether it be a pope, whether it be a priest, whether it be a friend, whether it be a crazy guy who makes you laugh, whatever it may be. Count on those people. This guy who I'm talking about, Bill, he was depressed. He didn't want to get out of bed. He needed to get a jolt, like the rubber paddle, smacked on his chest and say, stand by, boom. He needed to get out of bed and out of the ball of depression he was in and find a reason, find someone, like his wife and like in his daughters and like in his faith and some of his good friends. Clear, zap. Positive motivators wake you up and show you a reason to impress them. Or, that's so cool, is to impress the people that you want to. Pay back the people you're in debt to. You're going to have so much pride. Plus, the people that didn't believe in you, people that made up rumors about you, people that talk bad shit about you, you know what happens? Rub it in their face. Don't let them know it, but you'll know they know when you're doing well. And that's a good feeling in itself. Bill in the 80s was open enough to admit he was very suicidal. But his wife and children motivated him. And the idiots that talk stuff, about him, they're getting their payback now. He's a billionaire, and that's with a B, so they can, screw off. We all fail, whether it's divorce, death, we fail. Now, aren't you glad you're over it? That becomes a success. After crossing failure, success weighs it out, man. That list we were talking about earlier. Forgive those involved in your life that were involved in your failure. Forgive them, forgive them. Because if you don't, it's a ball and chain. It'll only slow yourself down. And forgive yourself is just as important. Forgive yourself for being in the wrong place. You're at the wrong time. It happened. It's over. There's a guy, John Asbury, quite political figure. He wrote a book called Never Again. And in the book, he bashed Bill. He said Bill Bartman, the guy who did this seminar, did some kind of crime or said something illegal, and it was untrue. But what Bill did was he pulled a cab over and he made sure to go to a book signing, and he extended his hand, and this guy accused him of a false crime. Bill was acquitted, by the way. All said and done, he forgave John at a book signing, and he shook his hand and he said, hey, I rolled a highball, I forgive you. It's really for you, not them, but it feels good, and it's what you should do for the karma aspect of it. If we don't forgive, again, it's a ball and chain. You paid the tuition, that's your education, use it. If you're in $100,000 debt with somebody because of a business, consider the tuition, okay, and take the tools that you learned and make it happen and get the money back to your person you're in debt to, or yourself, or whatever it may be. So you'll learn not to repeat those problems. Okay. Find a role model. Find the inspiration. We went into that. They're not going to find you. You need to find the role models. Be yourself, though, and find that role model. Don't be like Mike, like Nike says. Be yourself. Be role models to other, And his role models were Jesus, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, JFK, Philadelphia. Gandhi, he liked it because he said, I'll win no matter what. I can't even pronounce his name. Attila Ballion, leadership skills he had. He liked, this guy took nomads and made a fierce army. Not that that's good, but he did, and he had the skills to do it. He admired that in people. Get up and get going again and listen to your own voice. Get off your ass, get what he calls the rubber butt syndrome. Oh my God, am I not reporting?